coffee, big cup, and hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Gilmore Way Podcast. This week, we're going to have some fun digging into some of the moral gray areas of Rory Gilmore's life. We're going to talk about some sticky situations across the years in hopes of finding the answer to the ultimate question: is Rory Gilmore the asshole?
But before we do that, just a reminder that we may be spoiling anything and everything from all seven seasons and the revival. So if you want to save those salacious moments for yourself, you might want to click away. Binge the entire series as quickly as possible. In the words of Paris Geller, you can sleep when you're dead, and come back when you've done that. And if you could take a moment to smash the like and subscribe buttons down below, that would really help us out and we would appreciate it.
So quick recaps. This week we're on episode 9 of season 2, Runaway Little Boy. And Rory is put into a group with Paris, Madeline, Louise, Brad, and Tristan to perform Act 5 of Romeo and Juliet for their Shakespeare class. But things get extra dramatic when Rory and Tristan are cast to play Romeo and Juliet. Paris moves rehearsals to Miss Patty's, and Tristan's presence in Stars Hollow causes strife between Rory and Dean as she tries to keep their kiss from him a secret, and Tristan goads him at Dosey's. Tristan has been getting in trouble at school a lot, breaking into his friend's dad's safe in the house, which is kind of what breaks the camel's back. And his dad has to pull him out of Chilton and send him to military school in North Carolina. Cape Side, we're guessing. Lorelai goes out on her first casual date in years, her first since her breakup with Max, and a younger guy from her business school. But their age gap causes her some ridicule as he shows up at the diner with his parents, and everyone notices how young he is.
All right, season 2, episode 10 is the Bracebridge dinner. After the Bracebridge group gets snowed in Chicago, Lorelai decides to make lemonade out of lemons and invite her friends from the town to a fancy period dinner and sleepover at the inn. She arranges horse-drawn sleigh rides through the town, during which she has a heart-to-heart with Luke about his parenting decisions with Jess, during which Jess questions Rory about her true compatibility with Dean, and during which we see Richard in a much more lighthearted and flirtatious mood than he's been of late. During dinner, Richard reveals to Emily that he's retired without telling her. Yeah. So there's a number of moments, even just in these episodes, where Rory is presented with opportunities to lie or, do something kind of shady to inconvenience someone or to hurt someone. And yeah, so we're going to dig into it. But
yep. Yeah. So as you can see from the title of this YouTube video, we're going to be doing it in a way where we present scenarios similar to you see them on the Reddit website in that format. And then just after we give you that scenario, posing the question, is Rory Gilmore the asshole here? Am I the asshole? And then we'll break down what we both feel is our answer to that specific scenario.
Right. I've gotten in the mood. I'm wearing my Fisherman's Cable sweater. It's big Ted Koppel's Night Out energy.
It is indeed.
That's not how... It's big Ted Koppel's Big Night Out energy. And I'm also pulling an Alexis Bledel in actually drinking Coke out of my coffee mug today.
Right on.
Yeah, I've already had 2 coffees, so if I don't want to be up till 4 a.m., I had to pull back to 80 milligrams of caffeine?
Only.
Oh,
Lorelai would be so disappointed.
I know. All right. Start us off with our first scenario.
Yep, I will. And as we're going through these, if you have opinions of your own, feel free to just pop into the chat and let us know where you stand on these things as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts. But our first scenario comes from Runaway Little Boy. And here we go. A few months ago, I broke up with my boyfriend on our 3-month anniversary after he gave me a car and told me he loved me, but I couldn't say it back to him. We eventually reconciled, and things have been going well. But while we were broken up, I went to a party and accidentally kissed a guy my boyfriend despises. It meant nothing. We were both just going through it at the time. But now that guy is in a group project for school with me that we have to do for Shakespeare class, and he's come to my town to work on it. I'm afraid he's going to tell my boyfriend about what happened while we were broken up out of spite. And I'm debating whether or not I want to tell him or whether he ever needs to know. Am I the asshole?
This is a tricky one, but I'm going to say not the asshole. I think there's a fine line a little bit. You know, Lorelai has this conversation with her where she basically says, look, this is the kind of honesty that's only going to make you feel guilty and make Dean feel worse. So, like, I know you feel bad and you feel guilty about this, but you were broken up at the time. And so you didn't really owe Dean any responsibility of being faithful anymore. And, you know, it didn't mean anything. Like, you didn't go out meaning to hurt Dean. So, like, it's going to hurt Dean a lot more to hear this story from you. It's going to screw up what you've got going. And it's just, I can't totally disagree with her. I mean, I don't think Rory was wrong to kiss Tristan. I mean, she was wrong to kiss Tristan because he's Tristan, but not, you know, morally speaking, just practically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's hard to say because there are certain circumstances where it does seem like not telling the whole truth might actually be better. It feels sort of like icky to not tell the truth. Yeah. But I don't know if it's something that Dean needs to know about because she has no interest in Tristan. And Lorelai's right. It's just going to mess up what they've got going on. What do you think?
Excuse me. I am also in the camp of not an asshole here. You guys were not together at the time that party went down. It was definitely Tristan who made the move to kiss you. You know, and it takes two to tango. So, you know, you let him, but it was something that he initiated. And I think her fear and her wanting to be honest is stemming from the fact that she just knows that Tristan is just cocky and arrogant and that he's very likely to spill it out himself anyway, just because he's a douchebag like that sometimes. So I think it's also like a case of like, let me just try and beat him to the punch. And like, it'll probably be better if he hears this from me instead of hearing it from Tristan's mouth, which will just make it so much worse. So I understand what Lorelai is saying where, yeah, it's probably something that he doesn't need to hear, but I think she's just thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead and knowing what Tristan might do and responding to that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. It can be a slippery slope when Lorelai explains, hey, like, it's the kind of honesty that will only make you feel less guilty, but it's going to hurt Dean very much because, you know, that might be an attitude she takes on later and uses it to justify further lies in the future. Mm-hmm. So that's the only reason I would hesitate to give it like a blanket NTA answer on that one. But yeah, I think under the circumstances, she doesn't have to feel bad about kissing Tristan, and it's just a preemptive move to prevent a worse outcome in telling Dean. So
yeah,
again, sticky situation, but I don't think she's an asshole for it.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think she's just in a tough position, and like I don't know if there's a good answer or a right answer, but yeah.
I think again, I mean, this isn't a case study on him necessarily, but like Tristan is asshole. And again, I think Rory's just knowing his character and his personality and what he's like to do. So she's just trying to cut that off. But yeah, I will say really more so not the asshole here, just trying to not have drama within her relationship that she's trying to still actively repair.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Next one, ready?
Next one.
All right. I was recently shanghaied into attending a town event with an ex-boyfriend. I was pulled into the dance studio randomly and sat down next to him. This was definitely not planned, but because it was something the dance teacher was advertising, word got around that my ex and I were there and were talking about it after the fact. My boyfriend found out from a flyer and is mad at me. Was I the asshole for not telling him? After this incident, he came for dinner at my grandmother's and showed up with a black eye, which he was adamant didn't come from a fight with my ex, but I didn't believe him and confronted him about it at dinner, and he walked out. I later confirmed with my ex that they didn't fight. Was I wrong to fight my BF on it at dinner?
Okay. I feel like there's 2 parts to this. I'll start with the first, which is, am I the asshole for not telling my current boyfriend that I was with my ex-boyfriend at a town event? I I feel like asshole is a strong word to use here, but I feel like she should have been forthcoming with what happened. Especially because it wasn't something that she sought out. It was kind of orchestrated. But her current boyfriend is not going to know that. So unless you clear the air for him and make it known that this wasn't my doing, but this is what happened anyway, and I just want there to be transparency about it so that there isn't misunderstandings that are happening from my end, from your end. Let me just put this out there now. I think in that case, yes, she should have absolutely said, this is what happened. So she wasn't being an asshole, I wouldn't say, but the not truthfulness and kind of the deceptiveness that she was trying to just cover this up doesn't sit right with me. The second part of it was then her very just blatant confrontation at dinner about what her boyfriend's been doing, about the fighting, who was he fighting with. In that sense, yes, you are an asshole there, in my opinion. And I'm going to pull this out and flag you on the play. It was not the time or place for you to have that conversation with your boyfriend. There are other people at the dinner table with you who are just trying to enjoy a nice meal, who don't know what's going on, who probably don't want to get caught up in the middle of that. So it wasn't the venue for you to confront your boyfriend about it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. Your boyfriend showing up with a black eye is problematic and you need to know what's going on, but that wasn't the time or the place to do it. And I think it was very rude to the other people who you're having dinner with to involve them with it and to put them in that awkward situation when that's something that should have been handled outside of that one-on-one. So yes, I will say you were the asshole there.
Interesting. I want to go with not the asshole for the first part. Like, so this particular incident happens in Swan Song, and it's not the first time that there's been a bit of a contention between Jess and Rory about her spending time with Dean. So in That'll Do Pig, they have coffee and pie at Weston's, and, you know, Dean tells her about applying to college and all that. And then later when they meet up at the Winter Carnival, Jess sort of like gets the vibe that they agreed to go together, which was the case. That was just sort of Jess reading into it. And he confronts Rory about it, and she's like, yeah, we talked, we had coffee. Like, she didn't tell him about it after it happened. And he had to confront her about it and be like, you know, what are the odds that this just happened like this and that you happened to bump into each other? And I feel like in that case, she was more remiss not to tell him, like, hey, so I had coffee with Dean. I just wanted you to know because it's a small town. We're going to run into each other. And I want to stay on good terms with him. He's never done anything wrong to me. You know, I don't need your permission, but I hope that's okay, basically. And she didn't do that up front. They kind of had to clash about it before having that conversation. Typical teenagers not communicating with each other. It's like, I feel like it was worse in that situation where they rekindled the friendship after the romance was gone and Jess was put in an awkward position at the festival. So that was kind of rough. Whereas in this situation, it was kind of random. She didn't intend to hang out with Dean. It wasn't like she was obligated to tell Jess like every single interaction that they ever had coincidentally. Was she trying to cover it up? Maybe, because it's hard to say. So the way that the scene plays out is that he calls her and asks her how her day was. And she says, I was mostly just studying, basically. And he's like, really? Is that it? Basically. And just like, yeah, pretty much. And he's like, because I heard you were hanging out with Dean today. And she's like, where'd you hear that? And then he says that he found the flyer that said that they were talking about it after the fact. They couldn't stop talking about it. And that's how he found out about it. And so in the situation, again, I don't think Rory is necessarily like, I don't think she needs to tell Jess every time she interacts with Dean. This was such a non-entity in her mind. She probably even like forgot about it. She probably went home after that, did her studying, and was like, oh, that was just like a weird blip on the radar. And so when Jess confronts her about it and he finds out, like, how would she have known that he would know about it? It's almost like they ran into each other on the street and had a chat about like how nuts Miss Patty is or how nuts Kirk is, one of
Yeah.
those kinds of things. It's like, does he really need to know about that? Not really. And Jess is only angry about it because he's like, next time, can you tell me so that I don't find out about it from a telephone pole?
Yeah.
And I'm like, but did she owe you that? It's not like they made plans to hang out that she would have told you about. This was not a big deal. You made a big deal about it because you're jealous of this guy and you just want to punch him in the face, but nothing happened. And like half the town was there at this, one woman show. So get over it. You're just getting butthurt about nothing.
Yeah. I will admit that there was way too much passive aggressiveness on Jess's part with how he responded. And it's stemming from jealousy, but it doesn't make it right.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you about the second part of the question where, yes, it was rude of Rory to confront him about it like that at the dinner table and not let it go and not trust him in that moment. I mean, then again, I don't actually blame her for not trusting Jess very much because he's like, he lies quite a bit. He obfuscates and hides things from people on the regular. And, I wouldn't be surprised if had he fought Dean that he wouldn't want to admit that to Rory. Then again, he would probably figure out that someone would spill the beans eventually, someone who saw, or Dean himself could tell her. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he did lie to her about it. But that still doesn't make it okay that she wouldn't let it go at the dinner table and didn't sort of wait for a more opportune moment to have that serious conversation and put Jess on the spot when he's trying to impress her grandmother.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So partial asshole on the first, full asshole on the second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Full asshole.
Full asshole. Yeah, that's going to be, quote me on that one, you guys.
We'll turn it into merch. How about that?
Full asshole. Oh boy. Moving us along to our next one. Our next instance comes from The Hobbit, the Sofa, and Digger Styles. And here we go with the scenario. I'm a freshman in college, and the first party of the year is being held on our floor. One of my roommates, who happens to be my frenemy from high school, wants us to open the door to our dorm room and let partygoers come and go all night. She wants to have a fresh start at Yale socially because she wasn't considered cool in high school, and no one knows her here. But I'm an introvert who doesn't really care for rowdy parties, and I'd rather spend the night curled up with a good book or getting some studying done. Am I the asshole for telling my roommate I don't want our room that we share with two other roommates open to a bunch of strangers?
I kind of have to go with you're the asshole, Rory. Like, you live with 3 other people, and if they're all okay with opening the door and being a part of this party, then like I don't think one person should have total veto power for a room shared by 4 people, especially when the option exists for you to either shut yourself in your room with your headphones or to go home to Stars Hollow for the night. Like, you live locally and you totally have the option to go home and visit your mom. So, Paris is totally within her rights to say, like, this is my room too, and I want to be a part of this. Just going to the party isn't what I want. The other roommates are on board. Get on board or get out, Rory. Like, if you are that determined to be alone and a hermit for the night, like, just go back to your childhood bedroom. That's why you went to Yale in the first place, is so that you could be close to home. So, yeah.
I'm also in the you're an asshole, Rory camp. College, the socialization aspect of it is very important. It's just huge. Paris didn't have a social life in high school necessarily that she wanted. That's not Rory's fault, but she's trying to rectify that now and put herself out there and be more engaging with the other people that are on this floor. And I agree, you make an excellent point. There shouldn't be veto power from one. So if your other roommates are all fine with this, you need to be, or you need to just remove yourself from that situation. But this is their room too, and they have rights and a say. And if that's how they want to conduct their night and open their room up, again, I just have to go back to what you said. You can either hold yourself up in your room and shut your door. But if you're going to do that and think I'm still going to be bothered because there's too much noise while I'm trying to sleep or while I'm trying to study, then just remove yourself from the situation entirely and go out for the night or go back home. But if that's what Paris wants and that's what your other roommates want, they deserve to have that. So yes, you are being an asshole here, and you are being self-centered and conceited. And are we surprised to get that from Rory Gilmore? Never.
Rory's never self-centered or conceited.
Nope.
Not once.
Nope.
Has she been selfish? Yeah. We know that she ultimately does let the party go forward. So, but it takes Paris calling Lorelai and saying, like, I'm worried about Rory. I'm worried about her socialization. She doesn't want to open the door for the party. And then, Rory freaks out on her, like, you called my mom? Yeah. Which is pretty funny. But then, like, Lorelai makes some good points. Like, I understand that not everybody's a party animal and that Rory is a serious student who doesn't always want to be, like, at the center of noise and boisterous drinking, because that's not really her vibe. But it's college. Like, people are going to party and you just have to get used to it. You have to learn to adapt or, find your rhythm so that you can study with noise or go home.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that Lorelai was sort of like encouraging her to make new friends and have new experiences and get to know the people in her building. She has to convince her, hey, like, it's college, have some fun.
Yeah. And I think that Lorelai probably knows too, just from getting a phone call from Paris, that Paris wouldn't have done it if it wasn't important to her. So even though it's not outrightly said, I think Lorelai also knows that Paris needs this. So she's pulling weight for Paris, even though it's not her kid. And it's essentially not necessarily forcing Rory into a situation that she doesn't want to be in, but she's considering feelings of, like, Paris's feelings along with her daughters as well. And we talked about this already. It just is something that makes Lorelai a really good mother figure when she needs to be. So kudos to her for just prodding Rory to maybe step outside your comfort zone for a night, but also because it's, again, not always all about you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah. When I was first writing some drafts for this episode of these scenarios, I was kind of hoping to find one from each season, but I felt like season 1 was kind of dry because Rory was like your typical good girl. And we've also talked a lot about Rory in season 1 in terms of, like, some of the missteps she made in terms of, the Dean breakup and running away from home kind of stuff. And then when I was thinking about seasons, 5 and 6, I couldn't really come up with much that wasn't like a massive transgression. So Rory does F up a lot in seasons 5 and 6. But we have some separate episodes planned for her bigger mistakes. So we're going to skip right over them and jump ahead to season 7. Yeah. With our next scenario. I'm a senior in college, and when I was a freshman and a sophomore, I had a good male friend. Let's call him M. He had a huge crush on me, but I liked someone else, the guy I've been dating since sophomore year. I hadn't seen M in a few years until I made friends with a girl at an art exhibition. Let's call her L. As it turns out, M is L's boyfriend now, but when I ran into him in her dorm room, he pretended we didn't know each other, and I went along with it because I was taken back and felt like it would be more awkward to tell L about it after that. I recently had dinner with M and L, as well as with my boyfriend, who also knows M. During that dinner, my boyfriend revealed that M and I have known each other since freshman year and were actually good friends because L asked him how we met and he didn't want to lie to her. because it was actually through M that I first met my BF. He was also a little jealous because he could tell that M still had a bit of a thing for me. I confronted him about being a jerk and we got into a big fight, and it seems to have wrecked my friendship with L. I had told my boyfriend that I intended to tell L the truth at some point, but I'm pissed that he blurted it out like that. Am I the asshole?
Wow, hello, like just, daytime soap drama with that one. There's so much to unpack there. But I will start out by saying that in this case, no. I don't believe Rory was an asshole here. I do believe that she was truthful in saying that she was going to tell Elle about her past with M at some point. But I think she had the right to do that in her own time and one-on-one, perhaps, when M and her current boyfriend are not around. And if that's what she wanted to do and how she wanted to have that conversation, that was her prerogative. I don't like that her current boyfriend spilled the beans because I don't feel like it was necessarily his beans to spill. You're disclosing information that, again, should have come from Rory. And I feel like she would have talked about it with Elle in her own time. But now the situation has led to the loss of what could have just been a stable and solid friendship in your life, awkwardness for M and L, and a very contentious situation between you and your current boyfriend. I feel like it could have been handled better from all sides. No one was fully right there. Everyone made mistakes. But I'm not going to call Rory an asshole for this one because I don't think she did anything egregiously wrong.
Interesting. This is the first one where we kind of differ. I actually think it leans more toward asshole on this one because, frankly, she should have told Lucy well before this. It had been weeks that she had gone on just letting Lucy think that she and Marty were... Oh, sorry, I've outed them. It's Marty and Lucy, guys, in case you didn't know.
But if you're watching this, you should. And if you didn't know, we don't feel bad about telling you. So,
yeah.
Spoilers all.
I did have fun writing it up as though it were anonymous. So that was good. Yeah. So, she had gone on too long with this facade, pretending that she didn't know Marty. And she should have told Lucy before this. And not only that, but she put Logan in an awkward situation, bringing him into a dinner with them and just hoping that it didn't come out that Logan already knew Marty and that Logan actually met Rory through Marty. Like, this was just a messed up situation that didn't need to happen. She should have told Lucy this well before Logan was ever put in the position to tell her the truth. And he's right. Like, Lucy's a nice girl. I didn't want to lie to her. She could use some more honesty from her friend and her boyfriend. So I don't necessarily it was kind of a dick move the way he did it. It wasn't. Like, he maybe shouldn't have blurted it out like that. But what was he supposed to do? He was put on the spot to make up a lie in that moment to be like, oh yeah, I met Rory at the newspaper. Oh yeah, I met her at the newspaper. Like, he was a deer in headlights. Was he supposed to lie to Lucy? Would we have let Logan off the hook if he did lie to Lucy?
No.
See? So I'm like, the situation never would have happened if Rory had just stepped up and been a good friend and been like, Lucy, I just need to tell you that for some reason Marty's being weird and we actually have met before. I'm sorry, I can't account for his actions, but I can tell you the truth myself now.
Yeah, but again, I really believe that she would have and that she was going to. But now she's forced into a situation where this has to become public knowledge, but in a way that she didn't want it to. I think, again, perhaps she was just wanting to have a one-on-one with Lucy and say, this is what's happening. This is why, Marty's being a weirdo sometimes. But for it to come out that way wasn't entirely her fault. She wasn't disclose it or keeping this a secret forever. She just was, I think, wanting to share this information in her own time and in her own way. There's nothing wrong with that. I will say I don't love that it didn't come out sooner, and maybe it should have, but it still doesn't make her an asshole in my book. I really think this blew up because Logan just said some stuff he shouldn't have. He could have been a little more discreet with how I wouldn't have asked him to lie, but he could have been a little more discretionary with how he communicated their previous meetup and how they met originally.
I don't know. It's hard for him to like come up with something on the spot and to not tell her the truth. I just think like in her own time, like, oh, I'm just going to tell my friend that her boyfriend's been lying to her and I've been lying to her, but like, I'll do it eventually instead of just like nipping it in the bud and being honest and upfront. She was kind of taking her sweet time with telling Lucy the truth because it was uncomfortable and she just made the situation worse by dragging it out. And so Logan should never have been in the position he was in the first place, and it wouldn't have happened like this. So I have to give the doc to Rory for creating the situation in the first instance. So let us know what you guys think, because clearly we're in some sort of deadlock here.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often. We usually agree on a lot, but I'm enjoying the fact that we're not here. So yeah, let us know what you think. Was Rory the asshole? Wasn't she? How would you have approached the situation if you were Logan? There's a lot that can be said here. Drop us some comments and let us know what you think. But we can move on to our next one.
Our last one.
Our last one for this episode. Again, it is a juicy one. And like we previously said, these are some of Rory's F-ups that we're talking about right now. But she has so many more, and so many that are so much worse. So if you want to know what those are, go watch the show so you can find out just how bad she screws up sometimes, or just keep coming back and watching us anyway when we get around to talking about those really, really bad ones.
The cheating, the felonies. Yeah.
It gets bad. It gets juicy, but it gets bad.
Yeah, but it's juicy because it's
real bad.
It's fun because it's juicy.
Yeah. Yep. Anyhow, our last one here that we're going to wrap up with comes from the revival in the summer season. And the scenario is I, a 32-year-old female, want to write a book about my life with my mom, but she's refusing to let me. She was a teen single mother, and we're more like best friends than mother and daughter. And we live in a small, quirky town. It's a really compelling story, full of colorful characters, and I feel very called to write this book. I feel like the story has just been living inside me, ready to spill out onto the page. It's a rags to riches story. It's got everything. Family struggle, class warfare, the independent woman thing. And I'm a journalist, but I haven't had any stories published in the last few months, and my finances are struggling. I had to move home in the spring after an interview for a job I didn't even want fell through. Without this book, my options are to take jobs I don't want to, or to go back to grad school to be a teacher or something. I'm getting desperate, and my mom's being stubborn. I really need this. Am I the asshole for wanting to complete this project that could change my whole future? Shouldn't my mom be on my side about this?
This is the one where I have an unequivocal answer.
I do too, and I think it's the same. Yeah.
Flag on the play, Rory. Lorelai Lee Gilmore, you're the asshole.
Oh, a raging major one at that for this.
Yeah. Lorelai is not wrong for not wanting her life on blast in print. Like, you're being once again being extremely selfish, self-centered. I need this. Give this to me. Like, why can't you just be on my side? Because you're trying to broadcast your entire life with a woman who's had to deal with embarrassment and struggle and judgment from everyone to get to where she is. Like, you could have done any number of things. You're a bright person. You could have written a book about anything. You could have written a fictionalized book that was inspired by your life, but doesn't throw your mom under the bus or put everything on blast. So, yeah, I'm going with a big YTA for this one.
Yeah, I mean, you could have even just said, like, I'll just start off with what you said, because it bears repeating. Your mother doesn't want her life on blast on page. Thank you and good night. If nothing else needs to be said, we could just leave it there. And that's Lorelai's right. That's her life. That's her privacy and her personal life. And now her daughter is coming to her demanding that it be put on page for not only Emily Gilmore to pick up a copy and read, and not only for the people of Stars Hollow to pick up a copy and read, but the whole world will know this woman's dirty laundry and every aspect of her life. And if that's not what she wants, it gets shut down right then and there. I don't care that you're her daughter. You don't have rights to force her to do that. And it's not the first time it's happened. And I think of another movie that comes to mind, Riding in Cars with Boys, where like a similar issue came up and Drew Barrymore's character wanted to write a book about her life. And her son was like, I really don't want you to, because my childhood and my upbringing was really traumatic for me. And a lot of bad shit happened to that kid in his life. And I don't want that on the page. And his mother was just like, but I need it. And this will be good for me. And I want to do this. And it's a very similar sort of thing as to what Rory was doing. She was being self-centered and conceited yet again, making it all about her, not really factoring in how this could even just be like triggering to Lorelai to have to read about or to know that this is all public knowledge that's out there. And she just once again made it all about her. Not surprising because that's her MO, but it makes you a just raging asshole in this moment. So yes, you are fully the asshole here all day, every day. Damn, Rory.
Yeah, she's a real asshole in the revival. And this is just like the cherry on top of the asshole Sunday of the revival. So I haven't
You
actually
need to get merch for that too. Asshole Sunday now.
It's got like the peach emoji. Yes. Now you've made me lose my train of thought. Yeah, no. Oh, right. I haven't seen Riding in Cars with Boys. But you make a good point. It's kind of the same when the opposite is the situation. And what you said made me think of, like family vloggers and channels on YouTube where parents put their kids' lives on blast and give really personal details about, everything from, their like how many times you changed their diaper to, pulling stupid pranks on them. And, you make all kinds of money from this because it's very popular content. And, I think they're talking about it now, but I don't know that anything's in place in terms of ensuring that those kids receive financial compensation for it, right? Directly, sort of like child actors do. There's a lot of concern about exploitation of children on YouTube. And I think this sort of falls into a similar camp where, I mean, it's kind of, I don't even know if I could say this on YouTube, but it's going to kind of be like trauma porn a little bit. And it might be salacious and fun to read, but like you're just putting your hardships and your trauma out there for everyone to consume. And it's really icky. I mean, I suppose there's a way in which you could do it that like doesn't objectify people too badly. But the minute your mom says, you don't have my permission, like I do not consent to having my story told by someone else, even you, no matter how much I love you, I've given you everything I could over the years. I've done everything for you. But this is the one thing that I just want to keep for myself. Like, this is my story. And if I don't want it told, it's not your right, no matter what. Like, I will help you do anything else. Find something else to write about. I will help support you. You can continue living at my home until you rebuild your finances. It's fine. But please do not exploit my story for your own personal gain. And the other thing is, she didn't even like offer like, hey, if I make good money on this book, like I'll give you a cut. So it's just like money going to Lorelai or to Rory, and Lorelai's just, you know, used for the content with no remuneration, seemingly. I mean, she might have, but and then
No, but that's another excellent point. Even if she does end up consenting and, you know, saying like, yeah, you can do it, I think that she should and would be entitled to compensation from Rory for it being a story it's her story. Rory's telling it, but this is the story of Lorelai Gilmore too. So yeah, if I was Lorelai, maybe you fight for that too, because you deserve it. If you even want to go that far and say yes. But the second that she says no, Rory needs to respect that. I don't care that you're mother and daughter. That just needs to end right there.
Yeah. And the sad bit is that we find out in fall that she does, in fact, let her write it.
Mm-hmm.
Rory presents her with the first 3 chapters all outlined, and Lorelai doesn't even skim it to see exactly what Rory is saying and how she's telling the story. I mean, it might be one thing if Rory writes it and Lorelai reads it and says, I'm okay with what you presented here and how you presented it. You now have my consent to put this out there. But for Rory to just come at her and say, you better let me have this. Like, wow.
Yeah, and I think her putting those first few chapters in front of Lorelai was really trying to force her mother's hand after she's already made it very clear she's not comfortable with it. She doesn't want it to be a reality, but you still could not accept that. You continue to write, and now you're putting these chapters in front of your mother to guilt trip her into saying yes. Like, oh my gosh, you're such an asshole.
Yeah, it was trying to manipulate her into saying yes. She does say that she'll read it when it's done. And then they have that quip about, you know, sue me anyway because it's good publicity. Like, that's messed up. The whole situation is messed up. Yeah. YTA, Rory. YTA every day. So I guess circling back to our intro, is Rory Gilmore the asshole?
More so yes than not. So yeah, I think, and again, we haven't even talked about all of the times that she F's up, and we will get to those felonies and the cheating scandals and sleeping with married men, you know, at another time. We'll get to all of it. But even without those coming up, she's already the asshole. So how much bigger of one does she get? Stay tuned and we'll talk about it and break it down. But yeah, I will.
Kim Kardashian before the removal of the BBL bigger.
Yeah. Hope. But yeah.
This is just the tip of the iceberg of the crappy stuff she does. But
yeah, and that's saying a lot if this is minimalistically on like the low end of the spectrum of some of the horrifying things that she does, but she's already, I'll say you're already an asshole, and it just gets so much worse.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people give Rory crap for being sort of like the villain in her own story sometimes, but I still like her as a character for the most part. I think she's interesting. And the reason we do episodes like this and dig into these moments where, you know, there is some gray area is to, you know, just learn from it. I wish Rory had learned from it, but we could learn from it. So it's fun to get to do stuff like this and just to look at some of the smaller transgressions and see where she's making the right calls and where she's making the wrong calls and go from there, because she definitely makes some wrong calls later. She's a real jerk. I mean, there's even an episode called Die Jerk because she wrote an article that was so offensive. The ballet dancer hunted her down and yelled at her in public. We'll get there.
All of it. It's going to get so much juicier. Stay on the train with us as we just crucify Rory for her sins. But in the meantime, we're going to keep going with sporadic iterations of Am I the Asshole? So if you have someone that you want us to talk about next and break down their mistakes, leave us a comment in the chat who you'd like to see us, go to Am I the Asshole Part 2 with. There's probably going to be quite a few of them because a lot of our characters are not great and are raging assholes a lot of the time. But if you have someone you'd like us to lead with next, let us know.
Yeah. And in the meanwhile, next week is going to be our mid-season 2 special episode, which will be a look at all of our favorite nerdy references from the show. Like, we're both huge nerds, so we got a lot of different things that we could say. Like, there's a surprising number of references to nerdy properties, and we want to talk about sort of how they're portrayed, comparatively speaking, to other types of literary and cultural references, because I feel like there's a bit of a difference in how characters who have a nerdy bent are treated versus those who are more into classic or pop culture. So I think that's going to be an interesting conversation. And it will also be our first time having a special guest on the channel. So stay tuned for that.
Mm-hmm. In the meantime, go back and watch some of our old videos, and please just do those YouTubey things for us. Please just like this video, subscribe to our channel. It's one click. It really helps us out, and we appreciate it. That being said, Rory Gilmore, you are an asshole. And I think you might always be one, unless we get a revival and you can redeem yourself, which is another reason why we want it. But have a good weekend, you guys, and we'll see you next Friday night for dinner.
Bye.
Bye.